tutuloy ko lamang po yung aking medyo ano lang, pagpasensyahan lang niyo ako mga kasama ko kasi talagang napakasensitibo. Unang-una, tingnan nyo, napakaganda ng itsura namin dito. Ako nasa majority, nandito ang aking hinahangaan, nasa minority. Interesado kami dito sa usapin na ito. Yung inaantay namin, mambihira, oo. Sana magbigay po kayo ng interest dahil ang bill din na pag-uusapan po natin dito ay galing din kay Win Gatchalian, kay Senator Win Gatchalian na nasa majority din. Ang akala ko, kaalyado natin tong mga nasa executive. Kung kaalyado namin talaga kayo, siputin nyo kami. Pambihira, oo. Napakahirap po ng sitwasyon natin. Gusto natin bumalanse, pero kung ganyan naman ang maaabutan namin dito, mag-parliamentary na ho tayo. Wala na ho akong pag-uusapan dito, kundi mag-parliamentary na tayo. Para harap-harapan tayo. Ang hirap ng ganito, taguan eh. Hindi ako sanay sa taguan. Hindi naman po yan galit, kundi hinaing. Hinaing po. At gusto lamang po naming mas mapaliwanagan ang ating mga kababayan na pantay lang po ang kapangyarihan ng legislative at ng executive. Wala pong mas mataas dito. Tama po yung sinabi ni Senator Coco Pimentel at ni Senator Bato at ni Senator Tolentino na hindi po kami bata-bata ng sinuman. Hindi po kami tituta ng sinuman dito. Kami po ay nagtatrabaho. At yung susundan ko lang po yung sinabi ni Senator Coco na alam niyo po, napakadami pong napakagandang batas. Lalong-lalo na po yan yung patungkol sa agrikultura. At kahapon, narinig ko po lahat yung napakagandang batas na yon na hindi po nai-implement. Hindi po nagagawa, hindi po kasalanan yan ng mga senador o mga congressman. Kasalanan na po yan ng executive. Yung mga hindi po nakaka-perform. Bilyon po pondo para sa mga magsasaka. Pero hindi po nagagawa. Hindi natin malaman kung anong problema ng mga tao dyan sa executive. Kung gusto nyo ng silipan, maghapon tayo magsilipan kung gusto niyo. Tapos, sasabihin sa akin ng mga tao sa paligid, ganito gawin mo, gumanti ka. Kausapin mo yung mga nasa commission and appointments. Pagdating sa budget, harangin nyo, bigyan mo zero. Hindi naman natin pwedeng gawin yon kasi ang magtatamaan po dyan ay yung taong bayan. Kasi ang prioridad po natin palagi, tandaan po natin, ang taong bayan. Kasi po, kaya naman po tayo nang gagalaiti dito dahil itong constitutional amendment and revision na committee na to, ang nakasalalay po dito ay future ng Pilipinas. Hindi po future namin ng mga senador o kung sino man. Ang pinag-uusapan po natin kung tayo ba ay magbabago o hindi. Kung mga ganitong sistema, payag na ba tayo dito o hindi. Yun lang po. Baka sir, gusto niyo pong magsalita para lumabig lang ng konti ang sitwasyon?
Pabuti nandito rin si Senator De La Rosa kahit online. Na-witness namin kahapon yung yung init ng ulo ng isa pang chairman natin sa Agriculture Committee na halos hindi umusad yung hearing kasi sa galit na galit nga siya sa reports ng mga heads of the agencies to implement laws. So, andun din si Senator Padilla kahapon eh. Alam ko katabi niya si Chairperson Villar eh. Which, yung ganung situation could really be, hindi ko sinasabing panacea, nasagot lahat ng problema, but improved by the parliamentary system being mentioned by our chairman. Kasi yung head of agency, head of the department, implementing the laws passed by the parliament or legislature belongs to the parliament in a parliamentary system. Therefore, una sa lahat, he could have been the nominee of the majority group in the parliament. Therefore, the head of the department or government agency shares in the wisdom, in the philosophy of the law and programs and activities authorized by Parliament. So yun na yun, wala nang, you share it eh. That's why you get appointed to it. Therefore, your mission is to implement it. Yan po ang nakikita ko rin benefits ng parliamentary system. The merging or fusion of legislative and executive powers. May ganun. May nag-overlap po sila. So unlike now, nakikita natin, purely presidential tayo, appointed by the executive branch. It's as if, it's as if they're also a compartment na ito amin ha, dito kayo. Oh. So we create laws, they do not implement it, we are the failure. The legislature is the failure. Hindi kayo nararamdaman ng taong bayan. Ang ginagawa nyo, hindi namin nararamdaman. Totoo, kasi tayo naman, tuturo natin ng executive. Hindi nila kasi ini-implement eh. Oh. While in a parliamentary system, walang takas. Oh. It's the government of the day which is determined by the majority in parliament. So ang sabihin ng taong bayan, hindi namin nararamdaman ang programa ninyo because mali ang wisdom ninyo, mali ang priorities ninyo, or palpak kayong mga majority in the legislature, therefore we demand elections to change you. Ganun po yun. So, actually, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Wala akong problema sa parliamentary system. I think it's better for the Philippine culture then. Yung flexibility, we can make a mistake in an election and we can correct it after 2 years down the road. 2 to 3 years down the road, we can correct it in a parliamentary system. Pwede nga 1 year down the road. So, ganun po yun. Yun po yung nakikita kong benefit po sa Republika ng Pilipinas if we adopt a parliamentary system. Ibang usapan naman yan sa federal because federal is central national relationship with regional states. So, but parliamentary is the fusion of or the sharing of powers between legislative and executive. At saka, ito na yung totoo na when you call the Congress as the representatives of the people, yun ang totoo sa parliamentary. Oh, yun ang totoo. Kasi, di ba, even the executive branch is determined by the legislative will and the members of the legislature are representatives of the people. So, mas maganda po yun, Mr. Chairman. So, I agree with you. Concentrate. We also concentrate on a proposal to adopt a parliamentary form of government. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hindi ko pahuhupain yung init ng yung damdamin, yung bugso na yung damdamin, bagkos ay ito'y dadagdagan ko pa. Dahil nga hindi init yung iyong ulo kapag sana itong taga-executive branch of government ay lahat tayo ay nag-o-observe ng co-equality, yung doctrine of co-equality. We are co-equal branch of government and we should respect each other. Pag nag-imbita tayo, dapat they should also attend to our invitation. Dahil nga, unless otherwise, they are thinking that the executive branch is over and above the legislative branch of government, ay pwede siguro tayo isnabin at hindi pansinin yung ating imbitasyon. Pero, pareho lang po tayo kung equal branch of government tayo, kaya we deserve the courtesy sa ating isa't isa. Kaya yun lang, Mr. Chairman, sana i-observe natin yan at i-remind natin sila na hindi po niyo kami bata-bata. Kami po co-equal ninyo, kaya we deserve your attention. Huwag po ninyo kaming isnabin palagi dahil baka iniisip ninyo you are over and above the legislative branch of government. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat.
Now, people seem to get confused in regard to federal and parliamentary systems. I think you mentioned that already, Senator Pimentel. When you talk of federal systems, you really talk of the relationship between the national government and the subnational units. So when you talk about a parliamentary system, you're talking about the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Okay, what is the difference between a presidential system and a parliamentary system? Siguro, konting kasaysayan. Nag-umpisa ang parliamentary system sa tinatawag na Mother of Parliament, Great Britain. Nagkaroon sila ng bloodless revolution in 1688, where once upon a time, it was the king who declared the law. And I'm sure you remember the divine rights of kings, Senator Robin. The divine rights of kings simply declares that the kings represent God, and therefore, whatever the king says is law. But they had this glorious revolution, and so they constituted what is called the parliament. The word parliament comes from the French term parler, P-A-R-L-E-R, which means to talk. That's why parliament is a talking environment. You talk. If you zipper your mouth there, I mean, you'll be ousted in the next election because everybody, that's why no bobo can be member of parliament, by the way. I'm sorry for the use of the word, but I cannot find any other one which is appropriate. Meaning, somebody who has nothing between his ears will eventually be kicked out of the parliament because he will not be able to converse, he will not be able to exchange views, he will not be able to sustain the question hour, which will happen. I think you mentioned that a while back, because in the question hour, every member of the parliament will be asked, what have you done in agriculture? What have you done in health services? And the like, and will be made accountable for what he has or has not done. So, you know, the beauty of this is just starting to unravel. And I wish this will be a continuing conversation, Senator, so that, you know, this will require many, many sessions, I assure you, because I'm just truncating my thoughts now. I'm putting them all together, and then maybe later on, I will spell them out in more detail, if not in this session, in some other sessions. All right. What is the other outstanding quality of a parliamentary system? The fundamental principle is parliament is supreme, which means whatever the parliament declares is law. Of course, if you have a dual executive, then the executive, who is a ceremonial executive, will give his or her imprimatur, but that is only pro forma. You recall Queen Elizabeth? Queen Elizabeth will dare not give the royal assent. It is given as a matter of course, because it's been taken away from the royals. They are just there for, oh, I don't know, maybe for decoration, you know, and to for us to gossip about, no, and find out what dresses they're wearing. But if in a parliamentary system, you will have two executives, the one who will be there when your prime minister is kicked out of office and when the government of the day is not there, and therefore you have a president there who will be the bridge towards the next government of the day. I will expand on this later because I have limited time. But yes, Parliament declares today, the next Parliament can repeal. That is how powerful the Parliament is. That is the essence, that is the vortex of the principle of Parliament is supreme. So, any law can be repealed at a later time. Do you recall Great Britain getting out of the European Union? That was a decision of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party went to the people and said, if you elect the Conservative Party members, we are going to get Britain out of the EU. And the people voted the Conservative Party members. Did they vote for Theresa May, who was the Prime Minister at the time, or Boris Johnson as Premier? No, they voted for these two people as members of Parliament. It only happened that both Theresa May and Boris Johnson were leaders of their political party. And when they constituted the majority in the Parliament, the leader became the Premier. That goes for every other parliamentary system. Whoever is the head of the majority party or a coalition of politics becomes the Premier. And the Premier is the head of government. The President is the chief of state. All right. The other pluses of parliamentary system, and has been noted by Senator Padilla, is that there is a fusion of the executive and the legislature. You are not electing an executive because the prime minister will elect from among the majority party members the heads of his cabinet. if you'll notice, if you've been to Great Britain, or if you have seen it, as they are being videoed, you'll notice that the configuration is something like this, although the walkway is a little bit bigger, maybe double this. That's the reason why there is a term called crossing the aisle, isn't it? Because that is the aisle. If you cross the aisle, you actually change your political color. So let us assume the speaker is there. Whoever is seated to the right of the speaker is the government of the day. You are the premier. I am the shadow government. I am the head of the minority party. At any time you are ousted, we will exchange places. And let us say Senator Pimentel is seated there as the head of housing. Opposite from him would be Professor Monsod, who will be the housing minister even when your government is ousted. Do you see, even just looking at the parliament in a process, you already have a story there, isn't it? A lot of stories there. The concept of rightists and leftists came from that. Whoever is in the right of the speaker wants to keep the status quo. You want to be the government of the day. The one who is on the left of the speaker wants to change the status quo. We are the shadow government. I want to change you. I want to be the next premier. So, all right. What is the other beautiful part about parliamentary system? There will be no notion of term limits. If you're elected as a member of parliament, you can be elected for as long as you are alive or can continue to discourse in parliament. And you're elected by your electoral district, by the way. If you do not perform, of course, the next time you are not elected. And the best part about that is you don't even need to spend for your election because it is the political party to which you will plug your umbilical cord because it will pay for your campaign expenses, your radio and TV time. But beware, if Eric here is a member of the political party, I'll tell him, Eric, bayaran ko yung campaign expenses mo, and radio and TV time mo. Pero kuidaw ka, whenever you are in parliament, you got to toe the party line. Which means, if we are, let us say, against abortion, dapat against abortion tayo. Yun ang party line. Kung hindi, tumiwalag ka sa party. Do you see? Party discipline. Kasi hawak ko na siya, ako nagastos sa kanya. Okay. And the other better part of this election is that we're not going through a very torturous, ano ba yun? Parang 3 months na election na naubos na yung salapi mo, hindi pa matapos yung campaign. The usual campaign period is only 2 weeks. After the parliament is dissolved, within 10 to 12 days, meron ka ng bagong parliament. Because you only go to the electoral district and you campaign on the electoral district. You are not campaigning in the whole Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You are campaigning only in your electoral district. So you don't need 3 months to do that. No term limits. There will be no, even political dynasties will be irrelevant. Why? You have political dynasties and the empirical evidence supports me here. Orion, are you there? I'm sure you can say more about that later. But the reason why you have political dynasties is because you have term limits. You told people that ikaw ganitong taon ka lang pwedeng elect. Sabihin, ako, ang ganda sana ng gagawin ko. Itong kapatid ko si Eric, siya na nga ang aking sunod na mag-elect, no? Mag-campaign. At marami na akong naitanim na mga magagandang mga proyekto. Siyempre, Eric is more likely to be elected. Not so much because we have the same surname, Carlos, but because he just followed through what I earlier started. Why will there be no political dynasties? Which is so antithetical, by the way, to democracy. Because you can only be elected by the electoral district. Never mind that your surname is the same as mine. Do you see? These are really the things that we have to think about. And I think if we're talking about strategic communication, Senator Padilla, this is how we should sell it. No term limits, no political dynasties. These are irrelevant issues in a parliamentary system. Okay, well, I don't know how much more I can go deeply on this, but do I have the time?
Opo.
Okay, all right. What else does a parliamentary system require? It needs a very, very strong bureaucracy. That is the reason why in parliamentary systems, you have what is called permanent secretaries, because it's not the case here where when you have a change of administration, You change everybody up to director. Do you know, I wrote a book, by the way, Senator Padilla, on bureaucratic reform. I'll give you copies, no? Sorry sa commercial, ha? Pero doon, nakita ko ang presidente will appoint upwards of 5,000 positions. I'm sure, Senator Pimentel and Padilla, you know that mag-choose nga lang tayo ng 10, nahihirapan tayo. Isipin mo, 5,000 yung papakailaman mo. Every time there is a change in administration. And that's now it's not going to be. In a parliamentary system, only the head of the department, only the head of the ministry will change. And there will be continuing policy because the permanent secretaries will be the ones that will continue the policy, and it's only the direction that the head of the ministry that will direct. Do you see the beauty of all this? The bureaucracy is king in a parliamentary system. That's why when you talk about implementation, never mind that the cabinet secretaries are changing, it's really the bureaucracy under them who will continue under the continuing rules of the game or the rules of, well, the rules of the civil service or the rules of the bureaucracy. So when we adopt the parliamentary system, all these concomitants we really have to put in together. You cannot adopt them like fragmented, like with all due respect, you cannot revise the Constitution piece by piece or fragmented. Let's talk of the Constitution like an organism, like a human body. Meron siyang sakit sa kanyang puso, may sakit siya sa kanyang kidney. Wag lang yun ang pakailaman mo. Pakailaman mo lahat kasi infirm siya eh. Kasi yung puso niya at saka yung kidney niya, meron siyang relationship, di ba? So hindi mo pwedeng galawin yung economic provisions kasi yung economic provisions, nakatukod siya sa political and social provisions. Hindi ba? So hindi siya pwedeng stand alone. Papalitan mo yung economic. Tapos yung iba hindi mo siya papakailaman. When we are going to revise the Constitution, dapat omnibus ang revision mo. Kasi bawat section doon na papalitan mo, ay meron siya mga pinsan sa other sections. Mag-move lahat siya eh. They will all be moving parts. So, I'm sorry, I apologize if I go against the notion that you can in fact revise the Constitution piecemeal, you can't. Otherwise, we will be wasting our time, and some other time, we will again revise the Constitution. And we don't like to do that. You know, revising the Constitution is not like suddenly, you know, we scratch our head. Sa ligang batas po natin yan. It's the basic law of the land. It is not revised willy-nilly. It's not as if, you know, ganito yung kapritsyo natin ngayon, we change it. No, we don't. We're changing it because we want structural change. We want structural change because we want behavior change. I think I shall conclude at that point. Thank you.